Hi, Peter Charles of Hooked Fly Fly Fishing, and I'm out in my backyard today, as you can see. No water and lots of noise. You hear background noise. I'll apologize for that. Nothing I can do about it. Sunday morning, so everybody has to make noise. But what we're going to do today is talk about rigging and unrigging a fly rod, because I see a lot of people have issues with this, and I've actually seen people break the tips of their fly rods just not paying attention, doing frustrating things, and easily avoidable problems. So, fly rods normally come in tubes with a sock. I've already taken it out to save some time. And I have my NRX Plus 8-weight here. We're going to put it together, and I'll show you the proper way to put a fly rod together. Always start with the tip first without the reel on. And when you put it together with the guides at a right angle, and then you twist and you push it, and that locks them into place. And as you can see, the tip is moving away from me, so I don't have to worry about the tip hitting anything. And I don't have the reel on either. I do it without the reel. And I'll see people do the reverse. They'll put the reel on first. And I have my reel here. So they'll start by putting the reel on the butt section, which sounds like a good plan, right? And then they'll start assembling the rod. So they get down to the tip, and now the reel is bouncing at the end, and if they're not careful, they'll snap the tip off while they're trying to put that tip section on. So by starting with the tip, working your way down, and finishing with the reel, you reduce the risk that you're just going to break the tip, either by jamming it on something or awkwardly trying to balance the whole thing and end up snapping the tip while you're doing it. Now when it comes to actually rigging the rod, pull all of it out and get the fly line and make a loop like that. So we want that loop of line, and we're going to feed the loop of line through the guides. Now at some point, if you're tall, this will be easier. If you're short like me, you eventually run out of places to put your rod. So put it on some grass. Don't put it on rock or gravel or sand, especially sand. It'll make a mess of your reel. A moment to look where you're placing the reel will save you a lot of bother. And then you just feed this up. And the reason for that loop is if I drop the line, the loop stops it from going all the way down to the bottom. If you don't use this approach of using the loop and you let go of it accidentally, all the way down to the bottom. Very frustrating. So the loop will stop the fly line from falling back if you happen to drop or let go of it. Okay, the next step is when they're pulling the line through the rod, sometimes a knot in the leader will catch on a guide, and you'll see people just yank. Well, you could actually snap a guide right off when you do that. So it's important that you just take a time, and you can hear those knots catching on the guides. Just be patient with it. If you happen to snag a knot, a little jiggle and it will come off, or go find out where it's snagged up on which guide and free it. But just don't yank. And the other thing I see people doing is they'll grab their rod and they're stringing it up and they're bending the tip. I'll try and put it over here so you can see. They're bending the tip like crazy as they're trying to rig the rod. No, just pull some more line off the reel. Don't bend your tip of the rod when you're trying to get your hands on the leader. I've seen people with their tips bent like that. It's a miracle they don't break them off. So now we've got our leader and our fly line rigged. Before we go to the river or the creek, some people will tie on the fly and some people will wait till they get there. I do both, and if I'm going to use streamers, I probably, before I've even left the house, I know what streamer I'm going to use. But if I'm doing wet flies or dry flies, I'll have to wait till I get to the creek. So it's a waste of time and a waste of tippet to tie your fly on right now. So we'll assume, just to save some time, we'll assume that I've tied on a fly, and now I've come back off the water, I've cut my fly off, and I want to put things away. So the first thing you do before you take your waders off is put your rod back in the tube. Now, See what happened? It caught on a guide. They're not caught on a guide. Take your time, free the whole thing before you, don't just crank it. Again, you can rip a guide off very easily. So now that we're ready, remove the reel first. Again, you don't want this thing bouncing on the end while you're trying to get your rod undone. Now start with the butt section. Put it under your arm. Next one. Next one. Now we have the rod disassembled. When it comes to putting the rod sock on, I always put the butt section in first, not the tip section. Because if you are, fumbling around, this butt section is very stiff. And, if I was to drop it or catch it on something, it's not going to break the butt section. But if I did the tip, I would have a problem. And you also notice I put it in with the handle up top. Now I'm going to reverse. I'm going to put the stripper guide down first, which puts the stripper guide down by the butt section of the rod, not by the handle, because a lot of tubes are fairly tight. If you put the stripper guide next to the handle and then you jam it into the tube, you do one of two things. You put a big dent in the cork on your handle, and you can also bend the guide. And so I'll just continue on with the rest of the sections, and I'm putting them basically the tip section up, or the male ferrule up. Finally with the tip section. Now I will point out one thing. Because the tip section is light, sometimes it ends up like that and you don't notice it. And then you fold this over and you snap the tip off. Make sure your tip is well into the sock before you fold this over. So I fold over, wrap it around, and you can put a bow, I don't bother, I just put 2 turns. Now one last thing to make it easy, and again to avoid breaking the tip. You see, this is where the tip is right now, and I will feed it in that way. So I put it in upside down. It goes in nice and smoothly. It also comes out nice and smoothly. If you do it the other way, and you put it in this way, now often all this wound up stuff will jam at the top, and you're fiddling with it, and that's where the tip can get exposed again and break. So simply put it in upside down. It goes in easily and comes out easily. Bingo. Now one last thing. Somebody made a comment and asked me, should you be putting electrical tape on your ferrules of your rod to keep the rod together? First off, if you're using a typical 9-foot rod and you're having trouble with your ferrules coming undone, that tells me one of two things. You're casting way too hard, or the ferrules are badly made. Could be either one, could be both. So some people electrical tape on to keep things together. Trouble is with electrical tape, it pulls the finish off your rod. So instead of doing that, good old white candle wax. Just rub a little bit on the male ferrule of your rod, wipe it with your fingers. You don't want any grit or dirt in that. Just smooth it out and then assemble the rod. It won't come apart. So if you're having problems with keeping your ferrules together, just some white candle wax. And don't put it on thick, just a light application, smooth it with your fingers, bing, and it'll hold all day, no problem. And it comes apart pretty easily too. I've tried other methods and it's almost like glue, so I found that the white candle wax does the best job for sticking the ferrules together, and yet you're able to get it apart. So that's the basics of rigging a rod and taking it down again, and and avoiding breaking the rod, and also keeping the rod together with some candle wax. Just basic care and attention that saves breakage and saves frustration. So keep that in mind. Cheers.